Hello, my name is Cristhofer Serrano, and I'm here to talk about Dolores Cacuango. Well, who is Dolores Cacuango, and why did I choose to talk about her? Well, the reason why I chose to talk about her is because growing up in the United States and being in school and trying to learn about different people and research about different people, like more basically in the history of the U.S. I always have heard about like the same people over and over and over the years, and I was like, why, why instead of like looking to talk about for for one of the same people that I always have heard, and why don't I choose to research and talk about someone from my own country, Ecuador? So, this is Dolores Cacuango. So, who is she? Well, in Ecuador, she was one of the first indigenous leaders for her people, for her community. And she's remembered as the one indigenous person, one of the first ones that fought for rights and equality. So her story began in around 1881. She was born in a farm, and her parents worked and lived in that farm. Basically, her parents were slaves on that farm, and kind of similar to a history in the United States where like slaves were born in a rich people land. So it was like kind of her history too. Basically, the indigenous people, the indigenous community in Ecuador, they didn't own the rights to their lands. Um, the people that own the rights to the lands were like people from um, rich people, people from the capital class. So, and one night, when she was 15 years old, her parents think about um, marry Dolores to an older man. And when Dolores heard that, she didn't want that because back in that time in Ecuador, women also didn't have rights. And something similar like in the United States, like women didn't have the rights to vote, rights to be heard, and anything about that. So the same history applies almost to Ecuador. And so that night, when she was 15 years old, she escaped to Quito. Quito is the capital of Ecuador. Um, when she arrived to Quito, she didn't have like any friends, any family, and the most difficult thing for her was the Spanish language. And and it was hard for her to learn Spanish at first because her main language was Quechua. Quechua is a language from her indigenous community. And Dolores got a job as a um, labor in the house, basically. Um, and and then like in Quito, like little by little, she learned to to know some Spanish, and and she heard about like in the government there were rights for indigenous people. I mean, during the time the president of Ecuador was Eloy Alfaro, who was trying to work for the indigenous people to have rights and for owners of lands to return those lands to the indigenous community. So after some years in living in Quito and hoping that the Eloy Alfaro, the president of Ecuador during that time, will give that hope to indigenous people to have equality, she returned Dolores Cacuango returned back home. So, but before leaving Quito, at the same time, Dolores did make lots of friends, um, that mm, that didn't have like equality rights, and little by little, she started like to get followers, and to have like groups and about about different communities with indigenous people and people that live in poverty. So, mm, years and years passed, and many presidents of Ecuador came, and Dolores still fought for rights, still fought for equality, and so many things. Until one time, there was this dictator in Ecuador. This dictator wanted like for indigenous people to like not have rights, not have nothing at all. Like he wanted to for indigenous people to be in the same place the way like before even the laws started like to fight for rights for her people in her community. So this dictator um, decided to research for Dolores. She wanted to capture Dolores with his troops. So, and because like Dolores was doing something great for her people, for indigenous people, um, Dolores was making like secret schools. One of the secret schools for indigenous kids was Dolores' house. So the Dolores wanted to kids to have the rights for education. I mean, indigenous kids to have rights for education, but they don't have the opportunity because they were all like work, and Dolores didn't want that to happen. So that dictator, after finding that Dolores was making a secret school in her house, he burned her house. He burned Dolores Cacuango house. So tired of that, Dolores, there's she made one of her most famous video about talking like her entire life. She was fighting for rights, and she was tired. She was talking about like she met a lot of people, she met a lot of followers over the years, and she was tired that like no president of Ecuador like give her equality for her community. And when that dictator burned Dolores Cacuango house, she was tired of that, so she went to the capital once again, to the Senate of Ecuador. She went to the capital, and with a lot of groups of indigenous people from around Ecuador, from many different groups, and she created one of the first indigenous political parties for the represented indigenous people from different groups, from different communities in Ecuador. And today, thanks to Dolores Cacuango, we have equality rights. Not just only for women, but also for indigenous people, and for people that live in poverty, and for indigenous kids, and kids that live also in poverty. And now they could have rights for education, and indigenous people could have rights to vote, and so many things. Thank you.